Well, good morning and welcome to Lesson 5 in the BP College of Genealogical Knowledge series. Lesson 5 dealing with the Moore family. Now the Moore family, probably one of the more interesting families in our heritage line. I've traced them back to Willem Moore, who was born in 1506 in England, Berkshire, England. He was our 11th great-grandfather. The first Moore born in the United States was Samuel Moore, born in 1630. He was our 7th great-grandfather, born in 1630 in Newbury, Massachusetts. We skip forward to another Samuel Moore. This is where they start becoming interesting. Samuel Moore II was born in 1742 in Woodbridge, New Jersey. He was a Quaker, a very religious man, and very loyal to the King of England. Therefore, when the Revolution came around, he was asked by the Patriots, the rebels, to join their forces. He refused. He was a loyalist, or also known as a Tory. Consequently, in 1777, he was forced off his land in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and forced to flee to a refugee camp in New York City, actually on Long Island. He fled with British troops at that time, and his family was forced off the land shortly thereafter, and they settled in this refugee camp in New York City. Actually, 2 of his children were born there. Now, in 1778-79, the U.S. government sold all his land and all his property, and he was left with nothing. Consequently, he stayed in that refugee camp until about 1781, at which time he moved, his entire family was moved by the British government on a British warship to Annapolis Valley, Nova Scotia. This is about 1781, 1783. The British government did pay him back some of his losses from having lost his farm and all his belongings, but he never recouped all his wealth that he had lost. He lived in Nova Scotia until around 1800, and at that time, well, actually he lived beyond 1800 in Nova Scotia, but around 1800 he started purchasing land in what at that time was known as Upper Canada. Now, Upper Canada today is known as Ontario. His property in Ontario, he owned extensive property. Actually, he owned upwards of 10 farms in Ontario, and those 10 farms were comprised of over 2,000 acres of land. Okay, he had many children. 4 of his sons became quite famous individuals, or renowned anyways. The first son, Enoch, actually fought for Canada against the United States in the War of 1812. He was a circuit rider. He went on, along with 2 of his brothers, after the war. They became parliamentarians in the Ontario Parliament, and actually took part in the early 1830s in the reform movement that shaped the government and the laws of Ontario very much to what they are today. 2 other brothers, one our 4th great-grandfather, Elias Moore I, and another brother was John Moore. Those 2 were also parliamentarians. The 4th brother was, excuse me, frog jumped out of the creek in my neck. The 4th brother was a man by the name of Lindley Mott Moore. He was born in Nova Scotia, but moved back to the New York City area he was educated in that area and became a principal of boys' schools in the New York City area in the early 1800s. He bought land in Rochester, New York, and there's a memoir out there that tells of his travels from New York City up the Hudson River and across the Erie Canal to Rochester around 1822. And what a hairy trip that was. It was totally wild country at that time. The Erie Canal wasn't even completely finished at that time. So he settled in New York City, in Rochester, New York, and he became a very staunch anti-slavery person, an abolitionist, if you will. He formed the first Rochester Anti-Slavery Society, and as I said, he was a staunch abolitionist, and to the point that he became quite renowned in the eastern part of the country for his beliefs. In 1848, he actually appeared on stage with two other famous people, the first being the senator from Kentucky, Cassius Clay, the namesake of, you might know Cassius Clay or Muhammad Ali, who was a staunch abolitionist. And the other person that was on that stage with Lindley was Frederick Douglass, a black man of quite renowned, and they spoke that evening about the evils of slavery. And thereafter, Lindley Murray Moore went on to become president of Haverford College, a college that's still in existence today in Pennsylvania. He was president of that college from 1848 through 1850. After that, he retired back to Rochester, where he lived out his life. His son, also a man of great renown, Edward Mott Moore, became a noted surgeon, physician of his time, living in the Rochester area, was an orthopedic surgeon as well as a lecturer about surgery. He gave extensive lectures in places, Vermont, New York State, even at Starling College in Ohio, which went on to become the Ohio State University Medical School. He, in the early 1880s, early 1880s to 1890s, he was one of the founding fathers of the American Surgical Association, and in 1890 he became one of the founding fathers of the American Medical Association. So quite renowned individuals. And the last thing that Edward Mott Moore was known for was he was known to be the father of the Rochester, New York park system. There were 19 acres of land donated to Rochester, New York. He was appointed the head of the committee. They brought in Olmsted, the very famous architect. I think he was the landscape architect of Central Park in New York City. He developed the park system, and actually there's a statue of Edward Mott Moore in one of the Rochester, New York parks today, citing him as being the founder of the park system. Elias Moore II moved from Ontario, Canada, moved his family around 1865, 1866 to Genesee County, Gaines Township, Genesee County, Michigan. 1865, 1866. He became quite a prosperous farmer in and around the town of Swartz Creek. Actually, his farm was located about 6 miles south of Swartz Creek on the Moorish Road, which is still in existence today. The Moorish Road is. In the early 1890s, he divided his farmland up amongst his 3 children, Albert Elias Moore, our great-grandfather, his brother Lindley Moore, and a sister Isabel Moore. They each had approximately 60 acres of land located south of Swartz Creek. Lindley passed away in 1912. Isabel married a man by the name of Christopher Skinner. Christopher died in 1938. I have not been able to find out exactly what happened to Isabel. Albert Elias Moore, as I said, owned that farmland, 60 acres. And around 1910, he and his wife, who was Martha Haynes Moore, decided to move to Davison, Michigan. So they sold their farm lock, stock, and barrel and moved to Davison, where they bought another farm, which actually went under during the Depression. They were forced off their farm, moved into Flint, Michigan, and lived on Warren Street. My mother actually lived with them for a period of time, and she described the house as being a complete hovel. Albert Moore passed away in 1946. His wife, Martha Haynes Moore, passed away in 1934. They are both buried in the Davison Cemetery, Davison, Michigan. His father, Albert Moore's father, Elias, and his wife, Mary Ann Braden Moore, are both buried, as well as their son, Lindley Moore, are buried in the Avondale Cemetery in Flint, Michigan. One interesting note about our great-great-grandmother, Mary Ann Braden Moore, her obituary, she passed away in 1904. Her obituary stated the last 15 years of her life, she was completely blind, but that she was a very strong woman and a very caring woman, and was a strong influence on her children. Now, Albert Moore and his wife, Martha Haynes Moore, had their one daughter, Mabel Rose Moore Thompson, our grandmother, who married Cecil Thompson around 1909. Mabel was born in 1891. Lived a relatively short life. She also was a very caring woman, a very strong influence on her children. She passed away in 1933 at the age of 42. She died of cancer. She had had a mastectomy, and she did not live long after that happened. So she died at 42, and my mother's hair, as a result of that, turned completely white. And my mother was about 24 years of age. So you can see how she cared for her mother. So that's the rundown of the Moore family. Very interesting people, and I hope you found this entertaining. Next session we have will be on the Moyer family and how we are connected to them. So I thank you for your time and wish you a very good day. Goodbye.